Mom, why are you holding a criminal? What? A criminal. While I was confused, John approached with a pale face. He quickly grabbed the baby clothes off Henry and threw them into the nearby trash can. Hey. Just as I was about to scold John, my phone rang. It was my mother-in-law. Did you get the gift? It's not another creepy one this time, right? As soon as I heard her voice on the other end of the phone, I realized everything. The package wasn't sent by my husband's grandmother, but by my mother-in-law using her name. Moreover, judging by her tone, she seemed to know about Emma's psychic-like abilities. In other words, this was a declaration of war against us. If that's how she wants it, I've got plans of my own. I've been patient, but if she insults my sweet daughter, I won't hold back. No matter how much she cries and screams, I will never forgive her. I'll bring her down completely. I clenched my teeth. My name is Lisa. I'm 33 years old. I used to work at my father's company before getting married. By the way, my father's company operates franchises. The main pillar of the business is the restaurant industry, such as family-style restaurants. I plan to return to work someday, but right now, my family, which began 5 years ago with my marriage, is my top priority. My husband John also works at my father's company, and we met there. He's a serious person, and I fell in love at first sight and got married. Our relationship was smooth, and soon after getting married, our daughter Emma was born. While my life is mostly fulfilled, there's one major problem. It's my in-laws. Especially my mother-in-law, who sees me as an enemy. I guess it was a bad first impression. I stumbled during our first meeting. I feel like that was the start of everything. I first met my mother-in-law when I visited their house to announce our engagement. I had nothing to be ashamed of. John and I had prepared thoroughly. So, I confidently went to greet them, but then something unexpected happened. It was right after I announced our engagement. I noticed something strange about my mother-in-law, Camila. Camila, are you all right? Oh. What do you mean? Well, you seem a bit pale. I said she looked pale, but that wasn't exactly true. Actually, I have a peculiar ability. I can see people's colors. People in poor health appear in darker colors, while healthy people appear in brighter colors. However, I can't tell what's wrong or the cause. At that moment, she appeared in a dark color. I thought she might be feeling unwell. But since it was our first meeting, I couldn't say that outright. So, I said it that way. But this seemed to irritate her. She suddenly frowned, clearly annoyed. Then she said in a displeased tone. You say strange things too, don't you? You too? When I asked back, she snorted. Yes. The way you talk is very similar to John. Similar to John. I glanced at John. He averted his eyes awkwardly. As I wondered what was going on, my mother-in-law looked me up and down and asked. Could it be that you see strange things too? Huh? John has been like that since he was a child. Saying he sees things that aren't there. Suddenly, she started complaining about John. This is what she said. John had always seen things that others couldn't. She didn't know what they were. But John would say things like, there's a person, when no one was there. Camila thought this was creepy. And now she was asking if I was the same. No, I just thought you looked a bit pale. I tried to explain awkwardly. But she wouldn't listen. In the end, under intense questioning, I admitted that I could see people's colors. You're just like him. It's creepy. But, it's just. Shut up. Get out. Never come back. She drove us out of the house. Reluctantly, I left my in-laws' house. Outside, John apologized to me with a guilty expression. I'm sorry, Lisa. Why are you apologizing? Well, I didn't tell you about my ability, seeing spirits, or whatever it is. John looked down sadly. I gently linked my arm with his. It's mutual. I didn't tell you either. But with Mom like that, our marriage. It'll be fine. Though I said that, I had a feeling my mother-in-law would oppose our marriage. Despite my words, that thought crossed my mind. However, my father-in-law didn't say anything. If he could be on our side. I decided to pin my hopes on that. After discussing with John, we decided to secretly meet with his father. We arranged to meet at a nearby family restaurant. It was one of the restaurants operated by my father's company. John couldn't join because of work, so I was nervous, but his father arrived. "I'm sorry for calling you here." "It's all right. I happen to have a day off." My father-in-law, Robert, works for a security company. Today, he was off work. The timing of my call was perfect. I felt a slight sense of relief. "So, the reason I called you today is? It's about the wedding, right?" "I don't oppose it." Robert smiled, looking cheerful. I was taken aback by his nonchalant attitude. According to him, my mother-in-law was indeed against our marriage. However, he said she could be persuaded. As he explained further, he said, "She's stingy, so money might influence her." When I visited my in-laws' house, I mentioned that my father ran a company. Apparently, Camila was still fixated on that. "So, we should use that to our advantage." That's what Robert suggested. But how exactly should I do that? As I was thinking about it, Robert made a suggestion. Why not treat her to a nice meal? Or maybe offer to take care of her mother? I see. If she sees that there are benefits to the marriage, she might agree. Our marriage wouldn't change their life negatively. In fact, it could bring benefits. If Camila understood that, she might accept our marriage. That made sense. So, I decided to give it a try. The first thing I did was treat her to a meal. I invited her to a family restaurant. "Camila, let me treat you today." A family restaurant isn't much of a treat. "Well, this place is run by my father's company." I explained the background. She remained displeased. However, when asked for her order, she started ordering one dish after another. "I'll have this, and also this." "Okay, got it." I hurried to the kitchen. In the end, she devoured several portions. As she left, she said to me, "I'll come again. Be sure to treat me well then. And our marriage. I'll think about it." She left with those words. I didn't stop there, of course. For instance, I also took over the care of my husband's grandmother. Previously, Camila had been doing that. However, my husband's grandmother, despite her age, could do most things on her own. So, it was more about visiting her a few times a month. Every time I visited, she looked at me apologetically. "You aren't even married yet." "I come because I want to." My grandmother had passed away long ago. So visiting her felt nostalgic to me. I found it so comforting that I started visiting my husband's grandmother more frequently. "Well then, I'll support your marriage too." After many visits, my husband's grandmother became our ally. Eventually, with her persuasion, my mother-in-law accepted our marriage. However, even after the wedding, visiting my husband's grandmother remained my responsibility. Moreover, soon after we got married, our daughter Emma was born. It became difficult to continue working, so I left my job. But there was something more concerning than my job. What if Emma didn't like her great-grandmother? What if she threw tantrums and caused trouble? I had such worries at first. But they all turned out to be unfounded. To my surprise, Emma became interested in the antiques that her great-grandmother collected as a hobby. She was so eager to talk about antiques with her great-grandmother that she happily went to visit. I was relieved by Emma and her great-grandmother's good relationship. Time flew, and Emma turned 4. One day, when we visited her great-grandmother's house, Camila was there, which was unusual. After leaving Emma with her great-grandmother, Camila called me into the kitchen. "Camila, is something wrong? How much money do you have?" "What? How much?" I was taken aback. She quickly put her finger to her lips. "Keep your voice down. Be quiet." "Oh, sorry. Listen." She began speaking with a serious expression. "Let's go back a bit." She explained that her husband, Robert, had retired at the age of 65. I knew about that and had sent a gift to celebrate. But that wasn't the problem. The issue was that my in-laws had almost no savings. They would receive a pension from now on. But it would be difficult to live on that alone. So, they asked my husband's grandmother for financial help, but she said she was struggling too and refused. Abandoning her own daughter, what a terrible mother. So, you two need to send us some money. Ah, well, that is. I'll discuss it with John, that was all I could manage to say at the time. After returning home, I immediately discussed it with John. With a sigh, he replied. I had a feeling this would happen. For now, I'll send them money from my savings. So, we started sending money to my in-laws. However, it seemed my husband's grandmother soon found out. During our next visit, she said, I heard you're sending money to Camila. I nodded quietly. Yes, they're having a hard time. They've never been good at planning. My husband's grandmother was Camila's real mother. So, she seemed to understand her very well. I'm sorry for causing trouble for you too. No, it's all right. Thinking about the future filled me with anxiety. There was a possibility that we could continue to be exploited. However, if we stopped the support, she would surely be furious, accusing us of abandoning her. Was there no good solution? My expression naturally grew stern. At that moment, my husband's grandmother gently patted my head. Then she spoke softly. If you keep making that face, the baby in your belly will get anxious too. Huh? Baby in my belly? Oh. You hadn't realized? You're pregnant. She smiled warmly. I was stunned. I hadn't noticed any significant changes in my body. I certainly hadn't realized I was pregnant. Pregnant, me? At that moment, Emma, who was beside me, said, the baby is here too. Emma patted my belly. In that moment, I realized I was indeed pregnant. That very day, I went to the obstetrician. The tests confirmed I was pregnant. Emma, how did you know? I saw it. Hearing those words from Emma gave me a jolt. Could it be that Emma has the same ability as us? I can see people's colors, and John can see things others can't. It wouldn't be surprising if Emma, our daughter, had a similar ability. I told John about Emma and my pregnancy. Since his mother was around, John suggested keeping Emma's ability a secret. I agreed with him. Thus, Emma's ability became our secret. As my belly grew, I visited John's grandmother less frequently. I worried about her, but my inability to visit also frustrated me. Then one day, I received news from Camila that John's grandmother had been hospitalized. She had fallen ill. Given her age, I was extremely worried. However, I couldn't visit her, so I had to leave her care to John and the others. As time passed, my due date approached. I was admitted to the obstetrician for delivery. That night, John called to inform me that his grandmother had passed away. By the time I was discharged, the funeral had already taken place. Once I was discharged, the first thing I wanted to do was visit her grave. With that thought in mind, I faced my delivery. Perhaps she was watching over me, as the birth was very smooth. A healthy baby boy was born. We decided to name him Henry. 3 days later, a package arrived at the hospital addressed from his great-grandmother. No way, even now. Inside were baby clothes for a boy. We hadn't told his great-grandmother the baby's gender. But somehow, she knew. John must have inherited his abilities from her. With this thought in my mind, I tried the baby clothes on Henry. They look great on you. Just as I said this, John and Emma walked into the room. Mom. Where's the baby? Right here with us. I answered Emma, showing her Henry in the baby clothes. In that moment, Emma frowned in confusion. Before I could ask what was wrong, she said, Mom, why are you holding a criminal? What? A criminal. While I was confused, John approached with a pale face. He quickly grabbed the baby clothes off Henry and threw them into the nearby trash can. Hey. Just as I was about to scold John, my phone rang. It was Camila. Did you get the gift? It's not another creepy one this time, right? As soon as I heard her voice on the other end of the phone, I realized everything. The package wasn't sent by John's grandmother, but by my mother-in-law using her name. Moreover, judging by her tone, she seemed to know about Emma's psychic-like abilities. In other words, this was a declaration of war against us. If that's how she wants it, I've got plans of my own. I've been patient, but if she insults my sweet daughter, I won't hold back. No matter how much she cries and screams, I will never forgive her. I'll bring her down completely. I clenched my teeth. Then I asked John. John, what did you see? Mom trying to harm Henry. John murmured. I nodded and gently asked Emma. Emma, why did you say a criminal? Huh? Because, Mom, you were holding a criminal. A criminal? Who? Not Henry, right? When I asked, Emma looked downcast. She then replied softly. Grandma. So, she meant Camila. Suppressing my anger, I asked Emma to continue. And why do you say she's a criminal? Because she took something that wasn't hers. I listened intently to Emma's downcast explanation. This is what Emma told me. She had seen Camila stealing something. There was no need to ask where it happened. The only place Camila and Emma would have crossed paths was at my husband's grandmother's house. So, Camila had stolen something from there. However, it didn't seem like she directed her anger at me or Henry out of revenge for being caught stealing. Also, the baby clothes were store-bought. What was she trying to do? Suddenly, it struck me. Was there something else in the package? I quickly searched the rest of the package. It contained only baby clothes. But at the very bottom, there was a small paper bag. When I opened it, I found flowers inside. I threw the entire paper bag into the trash. Flowers as a birth gift were inappropriate. Obviously, they evoked thoughts of a funeral. It's common knowledge, so my mother-in-law couldn't be unaware. This meant I needed to look at things differently. Was she upset about Henry's birth? If there was malice towards Henry, what triggered it? For now, I decided to talk to Emma. Camila seemed aware of Emma's psychic abilities. It had to be related. That's what I thought. As Emma talked, I learned how Camila discovered her abilities. It was shortly after we found out I was pregnant. That day, I had left Emma with John's grandmother while I went shopping. Of course, I was shopping for the grandmother. During that time, Camila visited. Emma had said to her, Grandma, do you have a cold? Just feeling a bit under the weather. How did you know? Your color is different than usual. For Emma, it was a casual comment. But Camila must have remembered me at that moment. What I had said the first time we met. Emma had said something similar. Naturally, she decided that Emma was just as creepy. So that's why she did this. I now understand why she did that. So, there's only one thing I need to do. I asked Emma what Camila had stolen from her grandmother. If we could figure that out, she would be disqualified from inheriting anything. That would be the best revenge for her stinginess. I also asked John to look for evidence. A few months passed, and it was time to discuss the inheritance. John's grandmother's estate was to be divided between Camila and her brother, John's uncle. Yet, for some reason, we were also called by the lawyer. In any case, we went to John's grandmother's house. Camila and her brother were already there, waiting. Oh. Even you came? We were called. By the way, where is my adorable grandchild? Camila looked around. Too little, too late, I thought, and answered irritably. Henry is with my parents. I was hoping to see him, that's a shame. She didn't look disappointed at all. I held back my rising anger and stared at her. Soon, the lawyer began explaining the inheritance. John's grandmother's estate was quite substantial. There was a house and land, along with several valuable antiques. Additionally, there was cash. However, John's grandmother's will specified how the inheritance was to be distributed. The house and land would go to my uncle-in-law, while the cash and antiques would go to Camila. A valuable painting, though not an antique, was to be given to Emma. Why? Great-grandchildren don't have inheritance rights. What are you talking about? Giving it to her own grandchild, what's the problem? But Emma was still her grandchild, not a stranger. She couldn't even bear to part with anything for her own grandchild. How greedy can she be? I was boiling with rage. When there was a pause in the conversation, I exchanged a nod with John and interrupted. By the way, Camila, I heard you were stealing things from here. What? What are you talking about? My words made her scowl. At the same time, my uncle-in-law raised his eyebrows. You were stealing from your own mother's house? I don't know what you're talking about. She played dumb. I pressed further. Emma saw you. She saw you stealing. Don't believe the nonsense from a nasty little child. Camila raised her voice. Next to me, Emma started to tear up. I saw it. Shut up. Be quiet. Camila yelled. Emma fell silent. I quickly pulled Emma close. I signaled to John with my eyes, and he placed his phone on the table. Here's something we borrowed from the neighbors. Borrowed? What is it? It's a video of the neighbor's cat. John said seriously. At that moment, Camila burst into laughter. A cat video? Are we all going to enjoy it together? No. It's actually footage from the pet camera. You're in it, Mom. It was from a few days ago. John had gone to the house next to my husband's grandmother's. John asked the neighbor if there had been any unusual activity at John's grandmother's house. The neighbor said they had seen my mother-in-law carrying things out of the house many times over a long period. Moreover, she had been caught on the pet camera multiple times, and the neighbor had kept the footage. So, we borrowed that footage. Wait a minute. That's... She stammered, looking flustered. Her brother was watching her with suspicion. Did you take things without permission? No. Mother asked me to take care of them. Camila stuttered, trying to make excuses. But John delivered the final blow. Your excuses are pointless. We confirmed that you sold the items without permission. What? We also have copies of the purchase records from the thrift shop. With a bang, John placed an envelope on the table. Inside were papers labeled as purchase records. Pointing to the documents, John continued. Your name is listed as the seller. You sold paintings, vases, and more. That's... What's your explanation? Speak up. John raised his voice, making her flinch. Then she suddenly started crying. It's not like that. We were struggling financially. But John has been sending you money. It wasn't enough. I'm sorry. She slumped down, almost collapsing on the spot. After that, my uncle-in-law questioned her sternly. Under his harsh questioning, she began to talk. Here's her story. After Robert retired, their financial situation became dire. Camila asked John's grandmother for help. When she refused, she turned to us for support. We started sending money, which helped them get by. But they had no money for discretionary spending. That's when Camila set her sights on John's antiques. Selling the antiques would bring in money. She discussed this with Robert. Then, every time she visited, she would take valuable items. When it seemed like she might get caught, Camila planned to have my husband's grandmother hospitalized. She wanted to temporarily hospitalize her and take out as many antiques as possible during that time. While she was plotting this, John's grandmother fell ill for real. This made it easy for Camila to get her hospitalized. From then on, she had free rein. She took out valuable items one after another. She even took cash and had my father-in-law transport larger items with his car. All of this was caught on the neighbor's pet camera. I checked earlier, and many antiques are missing compared to before. As per the will, they're mine now. I just took them early. Camila brazenly retorted. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Is this a lifetime gift? That would mean taxes. Taxes. Oh, no, that's not it. My mom asked me to sell it. Yes, she asked me to sell it. Then where did the money go? When I asked my mother-in-law, she started making excuses. I used it for hospital bills. The amount seems too high for that, though. I also bought household items, used it for various things. Stop nagging me. Just as my mother-in-law raised her voice, Emma murmured quietly. Great-grandma is angry. What? Angry. She turned to Emma. Emma nodded and continued. Yeah, she's angry. She says to tell the truth about how you used the money. What are you talking about? Stop saying weird things. Camila, sweating nervously, looked around. Seeing this, I asked Emma. Emma, do you know what the money was used for? To pay off debts. That's what great-grandma says. Really, to pay off debts? I gave my mother-in-law a sharp look. She bit her nails, visibly irritated. By the way, it seems there was quite a lot of debt. What? I don't know anything about that. Really? Because we have all these demand letters. I tossed a pile of demand letters onto the table. Let's rewind a few hours. Before coming to John's grandmother's house, we had gone to my in-laws' place. Only my Robert was home. There, we confronted him first. We showed him the evidence, piece by piece, just as we had shown my Camila. Faced with the mounting evidence, Robert quickly got tired of making excuses. He admitted he had racked up considerable debt from gambling. He also confessed to teaming up with Camila to steal from John's grandmother's house. Robert, my father-in-law, knew about Emma's psychic ability. Without shame, he even suggested, if we use her ability for gambling. Needless to say, I was furious. John was even angrier than I was. I'm going to press charges for theft. Wait a minute. Charging your own father. Father or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't want that, repay everything. Faced with John's outburst, my father-in-law shrank back immediately. So he promised to repay all the money stolen from John's grandmother. We got him to sign a promissory note and took the demand letters with us. I calmly explained this to Camila, who was wide-eyed at the sight of the demand letters. There's no need for excuses. For now, please renounce your inheritance. I said, and Camila scowled. Why? That's a separate issue. If you renounce the inheritance, you can use it to repay the debt. Either way, you need to return what you took. My mother-in-law fell silent at my words. Then my uncle-in-law raised his voice. Enough. Either way, you have to repay it. But if you don't want to, we'll report you to the police for theft. Which will it be? Choose. Most likely, due to it being theft among relatives, the punishment in this case would be lenient. However, it would certainly not sound good. Other relatives would likely distance themselves as well. Perhaps thinking of this, Camila knelt on the spot. All right. I'll renounce the inheritance, she said in a small voice. After that, the lawyer present began the process for the inheritance transfer. With Camila's declaration of renouncement, it was decided that the formal procedures would take place later. Thus, the inheritance discussions that had entangled us came to an end. Let's head home now. I'm sure Henry is waiting for us. Emma, let's go get the picture you received. John stood up with Emma. But then, for some reason, Emma shook her head. What's wrong, Emma? Wait, great-grandma says. Emma pointed to the corner of the room. I looked over, but saw nothing. However, John seemed to see something. He nodded and smiled at Emma. All right. Do as you like, Emma. Thanks. Emma said and walked over to my mother-in-law, who was still kneeling. She gently patted her shoulder and said quietly, Great-grandma has something for you. What? It's in the storage shed. Emma pointed to a corner of the yard. There was an old shed. In the shed, what could it be? I knew the shed was there. In fact, I had taken cleaning tools from there when I cleaned the yard. But I hadn't seen anything else. It seemed unlikely anything had been added later. If it were something valuable, it wouldn't be left outside. Is it in the shed? Yes. She says to open it quickly. John nodded too, so although I couldn't see, great-grandma must really be there. Sometimes, strange things happen. I felt a warm glow in my heart. The shed. The shed. Camila dashed out of the living room. And the moment she opened the shed door. No way. There's gold coins. Her scream echoed. The loud noise startled Emma, and she covered her ears. Yes. Now we can pay off the debt. Just as Camila said this, her scream echoed around us. Wah! She collapsed in front of the shed. Camila. What happened? What's going on? I instinctively shielded Emma. Meanwhile, John ran to his mother. He quickly turned back to me and said quietly, "Lisa, call a taxi." "What happened?" I asked, my heart pounding. Amid this, we could hear my mother-in-law's voice. "Why, where are the gold coins?" Looking closely, her hand was red. Nearby, there was a large centipede. "It looks like she was bitten by this centipede. It hurts. Where are my gold coins, my gold coins?" Until the taxi arrived, she kept mumbling incoherently. Afterward, we checked the shed, but found no sign of any gold coins. What did she see that made her think there were gold coins there? In the end, the truth remained unknown. The strange occurrences continued. When we took her back home after getting treated at the hospital, we found my Robert there, suffering from back pain. On my way back from the convenience store, I found a wallet stuffed with cash. He threw his back out trying to pick up the wallet. But when he looked again, the wallet was gone. Moreover, there was no one around. At that moment, he realized. It was divine punishment from John's grandmother. As he shared this story, Emma quietly said to my in-laws, "Great-grandma says to be honest. She's always watching." Needless to say, my parents-in-law turned pale upon hearing Emma's words. That prompted them to change their ways. Now, they both work part-time jobs. They plan to repay my uncle-in-law for the antiques they stole from John's grandmother. It's a bit unsettling how obedient they are now, but they claim that if they slack off, she visits them in their dreams. So, they absolutely cannot slack off. That's what they said. It's probably their guilt driving them. But I decided to keep quiet about it. As for me, I now lead a slightly more relaxed life. With no need to check on John's grandmother anymore, I have more free time. Still, I'm not ready to return to work. I'm busy taking care of Henry. And I also worry about Emma. Watching Emma eat her snack, I thought about this. "What is it, Mom?" "Emma, does it bother you? Seeing things that others can't see?" "I'm happy because I can see great-grandma. Look, she's right there." Emma pointed towards the balcony. At that moment, I heard a voice. "It's okay, I'll be watching over you." Maybe it was just my imagination. But I definitely heard it. The familiar, gentle voice of John's grandmother. In that afternoon moment, I couldn't help but smile.